Have you learned the Torah Samach?
No, but yeah.
No? I just want to know what background you're at.
Is that what you're holding?
We're doing Torah Samach. Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
We're in the beginning. Ot Gimel. Okay, what's the last thing you remember? Anyone want to tell me? And I'll just pick up where we left off. Putting it on you, man.
You're looking at the wrong guy.
Huh?
You're looking at the wrong guy.
Why?
My memory's not good.
Memory's not good.
No.
Okay. What's the last thing you remember? I just want to pick up where...
The wells. No, it's one last time.
The wells.
It's the wells.
If you're in a negative way, if you're in a positive way, if you're another, if you're a bit direct.
Okay. The positive versus negative ways of utilizing fear. Fear of another versus fear of Hashem. Okay. Okay, so Rabbi Nachman says Avram Avinu comes to Pelishtim and he decides to prohibit on himself any form of relations with his wife, even though it's 100% permissible. He prohibits himself from it. And the reason he does this is because when he steps into Eretz Pelishtim, he feels the environment is one that lacks Yirat Hashem. He feels there's a lack of fear of God in the environment, so he decides that he needs to prohibit relations. Now the question is, what does one have to do with the other? So from here, Rabbi Nachman deduces or tells us that in order that here's how we see that fear of heaven, fear of Hashem, Yirat Shamayim, and beauty are opposite, meaning you have one or the other. So when Avram Avinu felt attraction towards his wife, means the beauty was elevated, he realized that his fear of heaven went down. So he had to inhibit the element of beauty and bring back up the fear of heaven, the fear of Yirat Shamayim. Okay? And only once he did that, did he stabilize it. And he actually did it for the entire area. So he went into Gaza. He brought back fear of God to Gaza, stabilized it, and then he left. After he left, they destroyed everything he did. Still do that.
Nothing's changed.
They destroyed everything he did, and then Yitzchak comes. Same story. Yitzchak comes. He also prohibited his wife on himself, even though she was permissible. Fixed it, and then he stabilized it again.
What do you mean by fixed it?
Let's just say he put back the fear of God into the environment. Okay, so everyone felt a fear of God. So there was lacking. It was an environment that was lacking.
So he neglected his wife.
What do you mean neglected?
He had more fear of Hashem than the beauty of his wife, like you said before.
No, he forbade any relation.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't neglect his wife.
Okay, I mean forbade.
There's other ways. He could talk to his wife. Doesn't have to neglect her.
No, okay.
Yeah. So that's where we left off.
But on a simple level, the instilling fear in Shemayim took place through the digging of wells. Is that correct to say? On a simple level?
Yeah. If you look at the story, the digging of the wells it's supposed to align perfectly. We're not there yet, but whenever Rabbi Nachman brings a story from the Pasuk or a lesson from the parsha or a citation of any form, the pshat, the simple story that happened, has to fully align with what Rabbi Nachman is saying. That's klal chadasrei, the 11th principle.
How can you take a mitzvah's aseh and prevent that from happening? How can you take upon chumrah for a mitzvah's aseh and turn into mitzvah's aseh?
What's the question? That
If there's a mitzvah's aseh to be with your wife, then
Okay.
how could he prohibit that mitzvah's aseh?
first of all, the avot were not mekayim the Torah 100%. That's first of all. Second of all, that's not the point we're looking at. That's a question on the story of Avraham. But insofar as what we're understanding from that story, despite your question, we're understanding that there is something here with fear of Hashem and beauty. And that's just what Rabbi Nachman is letting us know. I don't know about that, so we have to look into it. I'm not sure. But as far as what Rabbi Nachman is trying to tell us here, is that beauty, or hevel hayofi, there's types of beauty, removes the fear of God from a person. We know this because Avram Avinu, through Avram Avinu's actions, how he restored his fear, we understand this. So now that question stands, but I'm not sure.
So
Yeah. Okay, so now we're still going through this lesson and trying to understand concepts, trying to understand principles. Once we've established a framework of what's going on, we can start connecting dots and understanding how we can apply it to ourselves. So first, let's just understand what these things mean. We're also trying to understand what fear means. What is the definition of fear? And that, branches out anxiety, worry, looking, all the different psychological elements that fall under fear. We're trying to define how Rabbi Nachman defines it, so we can see how we can apply it to ourselves. So last week we saw that when it comes to beauty, there's a concept of chen shel sheker. Or last week, 2 weeks ago, chen shel sheker is a person that is in a position where he's worried what other people think of him and how he looks to other people. So that is a form of fear. I'm worried, right? So it's a type of fear. I'm worried that person is going to think this of me, he's going to say this about me, or he's going to judge me. All that whole category of other is called chen shel sheker. So therefore people engage in all sorts of behaviors that may not be who they are, but they engage in those behaviors to present a certain persona, right? Because there's an underlying fear of how they're going to look. So the opposite of that is constantly thinking, what does Hashem think of me? And that's how we rectify that fear. So there's no way to remove the fear. You can either fear one way or fear another way. Removing it completely from the picture just makes a person mental. Like it just really causes an internal disruption. So either you fear this way or you fear that way. But fear is going to exist. So we're saying the healthy way of fear is yirat shamayim. Yirat shamayim means constantly putting the thought in my head, oh, I wonder what Hashem thinks of me, right? So rewiring our brain, and then that makes that fear healthy. But if we don't have it, it doesn't go away. It just switches onto people. So in the case of Avram Avinu, he felt the switch. All of a sudden so he knew, like, wait, why am I not thinking about what Hashem? All of a sudden I'm thinking about people. He understood something's wrong, right? So he worked on switching it back. Yitzchak Avinu, the same thing. He stepped into Pelishim and all of a sudden his brain got rewired. And instead of thinking about, what's Hashem? All of a sudden he's thinking about people. He finds he's attracted to beauty. So he realized that something needs to switch, right? So that's what we're holding. Now Rabbeinu introduces a new concept. This is breathing. Concept of breathing. Okay? So he says, so right after it says, Vayizra Yitzchak Be'eretz Ahi. You want here? You have an English one for him?
This one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, fine.
English or Hebrew?
No, I'd rather listen.
No, but it's good to look at the
Okay.
words. Yeah. Just also so you know I'm not making
You
it
want
up.
to pass the water, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
You want a book?
No,
Give me
because
yourself.
Huh?
I'm taking
Gimel.
notes. I'm not going to be able to follow from the notes.
Okay. It's
I take
always
notes
better.
because otherwise I'll zone out. If I'm just listening, I'll zone out, and it's not good. So I'd rather I'm listening and taking notes at the same time.
Or somewhere in this. Well, at the beginning of section 3. Probably the next.
So we are.
Section Shalosh.
Does it go this way to this way? Yeah. So.
I don't have my glasses, so
Here.
makes no difference. I don't have my glasses.
Okay, fine. The Seder. Is it good?
Yeah,
Is it stable?
Yeah.
Okay.
First order to what? Sorry.
So right after it says Vayizra Yitzchak Be'eretz Ahi Vayimtza Bashanahi Mea Sharim. Here, you see down, Jonah, you see where it says Ki Ashirut Vehevel Hayofi? Yeah, that. Ashirut Vehevel Hayofi הם שני ההופכים. Yeah? Wealth and vanity are two opposites. So first of all,
Wouldn't
this
it
is
be the same.
exactly. So right now we're getting a bit of a definition of what wealth is. So Rabbi Nachman's definition of wealth is not vanity. So whenever he uses ashirut, we know he's established that it's the opposite of hevel hayofi. He's not talking about wealth that has vanity in it. So whatever it is, it doesn't have vanity in it. Not only that, it's the opposite. Okay?
Okay.
There's something to keep in mind, and whenever he says ashirut. Okay, ashirut. So now he's gonna take us through. He's gonna say why they're the opposite. He says wealth is a long breath, is a deep breath. Okay, and beauty is a shortness of breath. It actually works really well in English because for beauty they say breathtaking, right?
Right.
So in English it's perfect. We don't have to say more. But he actually goes into the anatomical breakdown of how that happens. How is it that beauty removes the breath? How is it that beauty comes from removing the breath or is connected to it? And how is it that wealth is from a long breath? So he's going to break it down. So, beauty is from the removal of the breath, the shortness of breath, has two reasons. Ki bisha'at yetziat hatipa zar'iyut. So, during the moment of conception, okay? Azay tzarich lihiyot hefsek neshima. At the moment of conception, there has to be a stoppage of breathing, a stoppage of breath, neshima. We're going to define what that means exactly, but let's just say for now it means stopping to breathe. Why? Why does at the moment of conception do we stop breathing? He says there's two reasons. One, kidei shelo yitkarer hatipa al yedei haneshima, shehu avir hakar, שמקבל בכל רגע מבחוץ, כי צריכה לצאת בחמימות, כדי שתהיה ראוי להולדה. The first reason is the seed needs to be hot. And if there's breath in that moment, it'll cool it off. And then, if you cool it off, it will not be like viable, conceivable. It won't be able to produce a child. So that's the first reason. So if you breathe in at the moment of conception, then you won't be able to produce a child because it'll cool off and it needs to be at a certain temperature, and that will cool it off and it won't make it an option. The second reason, כי מחמת שעוסק כוח הדוחה להוציא ולדחות הטיפה, על כן הוא בהכרח הפסק הנשימה. Now he's introducing us to a few new concepts. There's one thing that's called the koach hadoche, which can be translated as the ability to push. So in our anatomy, we utilize this in many different ways. But basically, at the most basic level, it's the ability to exert strength, to exert effort. Okay, so that's a unique ability that we're given, and it shows up in many different areas of our life. One of the areas it shows up is to exert, to push out the seed from our body. We need to utilize this strength. But, breathing, when we breathe, the breathing process is in and out, which is interesting. He says, "Ki haneshima hu motzi ruach umachnis ruach." What does it mean to take a breath? Rabbi Nachman defines to take a breath to exhale and inhale. That's one breath. So that means that part of a breath is pushing out air, right? And when we utilize the koach hadoche, when we utilize the faculty or the ability to exert effort, it can only exert effort for one thing at a time. So if it's exerting effort to exhale, then it cannot secrete the seed because they're both use the same faculty. Okay, so what happens is you stop breathing. So it can use it, so the breath, instead of coming out of the mouth, it comes out through conception. So that force stops for the breathing and pushes the seed out. So now we have two reasons. So these two reasons effectively leave us with a situation of stoppage of breath. Does that make sense? Any questions?
If one breath is both in and out,
Yeah.
then what are you stopping?
Stopping the out.
So then you're stopping in.
Look what he says right after that. So, כי הנשימה הוא מוציא רוח ומכניס רוח. אוקיי? הנשימה. ומחמת שעוסק כוח הדוחה לדחות הטיפה, אי אפשר להוציא הרוח. ועל כן הוא הפסק נשימה. But now read the next sentence. וזה הרוח וההבל שנכנס מקודם ונשאר שם. So the breath, when you breathe out, what are you breathing out? You're breathing out something that you breathed in.
Right.
So what happens with that? So he says what I breathed in, and this is the key here. What we breathed in is called hevel. Hevel means
Breath.
how does he translate hevel?
Air, no?
Air?
Is that ruach heaven? Breath and air. Breath and air.
So air, the air that we breathe in, doesn't come out. We don't breathe it out. The air that we breathe in, we don't breathe it out. Was that your question?
So I'm saying if one breath is both in,
Yeah.
out,
I find that hard to understand. If you breathe in, it has to come out.
So in the moment of conception,
Oh,
that comes out in the seed.
okay.
In that particular moment. But that's the fundamental point. So it's almost like we
What's
skipped
in?
one exhale. Huh?
What's the breath in?
Breathe in, yeah.
But it's in one breath gets your in and out.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to breathe out.
You can't. It's impossible. That's what he's saying. He's saying it's impossible. I warned you guys that it's going to be a little scientific. So he's saying that the way Hashem made it is that there's koach hadoche. Koach hadoche can only be doche, can only exert one type of thing.
One energy.
One energy. Very good. One energy. Can only exert one energy. So either we're exerting the breath or the seed. So that's what happens. So what happens with the breath then? So let's look at that. What happens with the breath? So you breathed in, now you can't exert it out. So the breath, where does the breath go? This breath that has entered before, so there's a breath in the system of the person. hu mitlabesh b'hakoach hadocher. Okay, so this breath goes into the koach hadocher. It goes into the ability to push, the ability to exert. It gets absorbed into that.
Creates a force.
Now the breath, it doesn't get wasted. It just goes into now.
It's redirected.
It's redirected. Ve'al yado yotzat tipa lachutz. And that force, that inertia, now goes into the seed. So effectively what we have here is a breath of air going into the seed. Why does that matter? Now comes his point. So that breath of air determines the beauty level of the individual that is conceived from that seed. Okay, so that's the key point here. That breath of air that the person breathed in before and then goes into the seed, if that breath of air is a clean breath, then it will produce a clean, beautiful looking child. And if it's a toxic breath, then it will remove from the beauty of the child.
Which why they couldn't do it in Plishtim, because it was not clean air.
Which is why what?
Which is why Avram and Sarah couldn't do it in that place, because it wasn't clean air or was toxic environment. So if they would do that, then
Perfect.
Very good.
they would have brought that into the fetus, I guess.
Yeah,
Conception.
yeah.
But then that's like everyone goes, why is it different in Mitzrayim or Toronto or New York or anywhere that's not near strong?
So everyone on their level. Everyone on their level.
So it's
Right.
okay for some Jewish
That was the
people to
level
do
of
it,
Yitzchak. We have our level. I mean, we have to extrapolate what he did on our situation, right? It's not absolute.
If I'm saying the whole premise is that when the air you breathe in or the environment that you're in the larger sense, it's not a Kurdish environment, then whatever you take from that environment, when you're breathing or whatever, it's going to go into your actions. So if you're having relations and you're intaking that klipa, you're bringing that klipa into the conception, right? And so wouldn't that happen to anyone in any place?
No, you have a very good point. So, just to make his question clear, I'm gonna take your question a step further. Can you skip this process?
No.
Can't skip this process, right? This is a fact. Even Avram Avinu. But if you look deeper, I'll go, even if the environment was perfect, okay, the next point he's saying here is that regardless of what we're talking about, this is hevel hayofi. That means that the starting point of a human being is from the breath of the parent.
Yeah.
But that is hevel hayofi. This is what Rabbi Nachman is saying here. He's explaining to us, right? This whole drush was to tell us what? Was to tell us that hevel hayofi, vain beauty, is shortness of breath. How do we know that vain beauty is shortness of breath? Because a person takes a breath in, that breath goes into the seed, and then a person is produced. And according to that breath, there's beauty.
Or
That
not.
mean, okay, but the element of beauty, right? The first point of a person, of a human being, is that breath, and that breath is negative.
So is the beauty the physical beauty or
Physical.
physical?
Hevel hayofi is physical beauty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no positive aspect. Well, you know,
The positive
there's
aspect is
negative,
that
there's negative,
no, the positive is that it needs to happen. You can't skip this process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's built into the system. We have to go through, right? There has to be. We have to go through this point where we're going through hevel hayofi.
So why are some people, for lack of a non-Gashmias example, why are some people more physically attractive and other people are less physically
Here he
attractive?
says. Let's read it.
Is that because the intake is...
Look, let's read what he says here. ועל ידו יוצא טיפה לחוץ, וכפי זכות וצחות ההבל, according to the, how does he translate zakut v'tzachut? Clarity?
And to the degree that the breath is pure and clear.
Okay, to the degree that the breath is pure and clear. Ken havalad meluban umezoraz.
Offspring is like what's fair and healthy.
That's what he says. According to the clarity of the breath, so is
Okay,
the,
so if the breath is clear, someone's more attractive. The
Yeah.
breath is less clear, someone's less attractive.
it's more beautiful.
So your environment, your breathing affects the offspring.
Attraction is not okay. Just let's define here for a second. The difference between beauty and attraction is the difference between chen and yofi. So earlier in Od Gimel, in the beginning of Od Gimel, Rabbi Nachman talks about chen shel sheker and hevel hayofi. Chen shel sheker is the attraction element,
Right.
and yofi is just the beauty. That's just a side point, okay? But insofar as what we're talking about, according to the clarity of the breath, that is the beauty of the offspring, of the fetus, of the child, right?
So, how does midos get part of this creation? Like we were talking about beauty of an offspring.
Yes. Yeah.
We're talking about the beauty of an offspring.
Yeah.
You're saying beauty, right? Like physical beauty.
Yeah.
Where does the beauty of a child
Character, like internal beauty.
Yeah, get created?
Um.
Is it part of this process?
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, it's later on in if you look at Ot Vav. Later on, he talks about how who was it that came to the Boaz or came to the king, and the king said to him, was it Boaz? No, it was Nehemiah. Nehemiah came to the king. The king said, your face looks off. And in there he goes that there's a certain light in a person's face. And that would be the opposite. So there's internal beauty, which is a light in a face.
Right.
And then there's the face, right? So when a person lacks the light, they put a lot of beauty on the face to make up for it.
Right.
Makeup. Right? That's the idea. But when you have the light, you don't need no makeup because
Right.
the light emanates.
Right.
So in that, later on,
Okay.
when we get there, remind
just
me,
curious.
Odvav, we're going to get into the internal beauty.
Okay.
Okay, so this is, the reason we're talking about this, just to back up a bit, is we're looking at the definition of what is Hevel Hayofi, what is beauty. We're trying to understand what that means for us. We're trying to understand what it means in the context of breathing. So right now, there's two reasons why in the moment of conception, there is no breath. First reason is not to cool off. If you cool it off, then you won't be able to have a child from that. And the second reason is because it's impossible to breathe at that moment. Okay? And Now that we've established that, we understand that the breath of a person determines the beauty. Okay, so in the moment when the beauty is being determined, there's no breathing. And it's the breath itself that turns into a person, that energizes the seed forward. ואם יש אחירות בתוך ההבל, אזי נתעקר הטיפה גם כן. And if there is, how do you say אחירות? It's murky? What's the word?
In English sounds funny, but if there is turbidity within the breath.
Turbidity?
What's that?
Turbidity.
Anyone know?
No.
Well, I think in terms of
Turbidity.
turbulence.
Turbulence.
It's a very
Yeah.
shaky.
Harry
That's very like rapids. They're very turbulent.
Yeah, like shaky.
Yeah, it's a lot
unstable.
it's the
perhaps.
I hear things sort of like a lot of anxiety, a long breath is very relaxed. And turbulence is like.
So in the breath there could be, and then if that goes into the seed, then that affects the seed and produces something from that vein. And this is what it says in the pasuk, Adam lahevel dama. Yeah, the pasuk literally says that person is breath. This is what it means. This is what it means, the person is breath. Ki kefi hahevel ken yithavu tavalad. That we are, as human beings, determined by the breath. The way we look, our being. The fetus is according to the breath. V'zeh bechinat ach hevel b'nei adam. Okay. And this is, so now we understand the sheker chen v'hevel hayofi. Okay, what does those two words mean? Hevel hayofi. This is the definition. Hevel hayofi. Hevel means breath. Yofi means beauty. Beauty is determined by breath. That's what it means.
Very nice.
Yeah. So that's how he lays out this foundation. So now we're going to understand every time we talk about Hevel Hayofi, that term, this is what we're referring to, and this is how those two came to be. It's not just a random conjunction of breath and beauty. This is how, and there has to be a shortness of breath. Okay? Okay, now he goes and he says something else. Laken mi shechomed yofi hanashim, one who, you say chomed, lusts, I would say. Lusts. Yeah, I think it's lusts. One who lusts after female beauty. When we lust after female beauty, nimtza shemekabel bechinat hefsek hanashima. This shortness of breath, the stoppage of breath, comes onto that person in that moment. This whole process gets drawn in. He gets drawn into this process. When a person lusts after female beauty, he has the bechina, he has the aspect of hefsek neshima. The aspect of, not the actual shortness of breath, the aspect of it. So in the moment of conception is the actual stoppage of the breath, but in the moment of lusting, the aspect happens to him. So he goes into like a similar state. In that state, ubehefech ma'ashirut. That state is the opposite of wealth. Because remember we said before, a supposition. Wealth is long breath. So anytime a person goes into a state of cut off breath, he's not in a state of wealth. That means even if a person has wealth, but he's in that state, according to the way he's defining wealth, that's not wealth.
So someone who is lustful.
You said just to get on a tangent, when you waste seed, it's like you're wasting your wealth.
So that's later on.
Okay.
So someone who's lustful has a longer breath or
Shorter.
Shorter.
Shorter. Does it make sense?
Okay.
Can we define Ashirus as long breath?
Yeah.
Or
Rabbi Nachman defines
it.
it.
It's bechina of it. Or it's bechina. Like it's.
So he actually, right now we're going to look into why it's actually it. Yeah.
Ashiras
Is long breath the same way
Arichas Neshima and also Arichas Yam.
Hevel Hayofi is Hefsek Neshima? And then there's many aspects of it. And then Ashirus is long breath, and then there's many aspects of that. So there's the original point, and then there's aspects that sort of parallel it. So we said that Yofi hu mehefsek neshima. It's not bechinat. Yofi hu mehefsek neshima. So beauty comes from hefsek neshima, and then a derivative of that, the aspect is beauty of feminine. When a person lusts, he enters the aspect of it. He enters a dimension that's similar to it.
But I mean, I don't. For me, I think lust is not love, is it?
No, chomed is not
So
love.
why would it be a shorter breath? Shouldn't it be a longer breath? And because he's not doing it, or what?
It's an aspect. It's a bechina. So it's obviously going to be different than the moment of conception.
Right,
Moment of conception is absolute.
right,
There's no breathing.
right.
There's an aspect of it. What that means, it's like, we could get into it, but effectively it just means, this is a very common theme throughout Likutei Moharan, aspects, or Bechina in Hebrew. Bechina just means that they sort of fall within, parallels upon parallels upon parallels. But the idea is that they run along the same lines. That's the idea. So we're laying out a few foundations, and then we'll draw lines from each one, and then the idea is from this foundation we can draw it all the way down to our lives. But to do that, we have to go through the parallels, because not everyone, the moment of conception is 1 second. So like, right? We're not living in that moment. So, but we understand it at the root, and then we can understand the parallels all the way down on all the different areas of life that are moments of conception, and then whatever applies there, we can learn how to apply it in the other aspects too. So the first connection he gave us right now is Ken Misha Chomed Yofi Anamshim Nimtza Shemekabel Bechinat Hefsek HaNeshima. So when a person lusts, when a person goes out and he lusts for the beauty of women, so he's entering into this category because he's entering into the space of beauty. Lust is like the parallel to the conception, but it's on a very lower level.
Right.
But it's just lust.
So it's not a sincere.
Right.
Right.
But the moment of conception is if you took lust all the way to the end, it's the moment of conception. So the many steps before that is a beginning of that process. So that's lust. And then Yofi Anashim is the beauty. Beauty comes out in the women primarily. So that's when the two connect. So then again, that person is now in a state of shortness of breath, because that's what happens. It happens. So now you've engaged the process where the breath gets taken away. Once that process is engaged, there's many levels of engaging that process. In its most absolute form, it's the moment of conception, and it's in its derivative forms, it's all these moments in life when a person lusts, and that moment sort of brings in. You could say Avram Avinu. He felt. The pasuk says he said, "Oh, you're beautiful." He tells his wife, "You're beautiful." Rashi says he didn't realize until that moment that she was beautiful. What does that mean? He didn't realize. What does that mean? That's the first moment he lusted, or whatever that means for Avram Avinu, right? So that's it. He engaged, but that was for him. He took it as a sign of what's going on, and he knew now what he needs to do. That moment where he lost his breath, so to speak, indicated to him what's going on. Avram Avinu himself says, "Whoa, there's no fear of God here. I have no breath." He understood, right? And then he knew what he needed to do. He knew his next step. Huh?
It's fascinating. It's like a whole other way of looking.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, he's looking at it as constant opportunities for him, and sort of guidance on through his physical body, right? His physical body is giving him messages, and that those messages he's understanding on what his avodat Hashem is now. So sometimes we only are aware that we're not aware. Maybe we're not so conscious of our actions, and only when we have no breath does that pull us in. Like, why am I not breathing properly? And then we can trace it back, and then we understand. So, Yirat Shamayim is long breath, right? Because Yirat, can I do the category? I hope I brought the right book. I wrote it down. So Yirat Shamayim is in the same column as Ashirut. Okay? Here. So we said, what are the opposites? Wealth and Hevel Yofi. Those are opposites. Why are we talking about this? Does anyone remember the flow? Where is this coming from? We started off, we said that we need to have
Shoes
for Hitbonenut.
yeah.
Need that
And then
problem.
you need that wealth.
Right.
But what's criteria for the wealth was a long life. We need to be able to elongate our days, right? And what's that criteria for Arichut Yamim? What gets?
Bringing in more holiness. That's why.
How do you bring in more holiness into your day? No, he said very clearly.
Yirat Shamayim.
Yirat Shamayim. That was
Increasing Yirat
fear.
Shamayim. Yeah,
Fear.
Fear.
Fear is how fear moves the holiness forward.
Yeah.
Now we're saying, what blocks fear? What gets in the way of fear? Which gets in the way of wealth? Sheker Achen Hevel Yofi. That is right. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make our days longer. The catalyst or the motivating force to make our day longer by adding Kedusha is Yirat Hashem. What gets in the way of Yirat Hashem? Like we said, fear is always going to exist in us. It's not going to go away from us. So it's either going to exist in us in a way that we're worried about people, and then we've entered into the world of shortness of breath, into the world of fear and anxiety that is unhealthy, into the world of beauty, or we bring it back and we put it into Hashem. When we put it into Hashem, then fear acts as a positive motivator, and then it elongates our days. When we're in that state, we have the capacity to receive wealth. And then that opens up our minds to be able to contemplate deeply. So really, the key point where we enter into the picture is the wealth, is the beauty. The beauty versus fear. That's our entry point into this. The other points are almost out of it. We're going to talk the other side of it, but we're entering from the point where we can take action. When we look at wealth, the first feeling is like, how am I supposed to make myself wealthy? Or when we look at a long life, say, how am I supposed to make myself have a long life, right? It almost feels like it's a bit out of our hand here. But fear is up to us. So it's up to us to direct the fear. As we're going to see, the fear is a direct consequence of faith in Hashem, right? So, like, the biggest struggle we have to fearing God is the fact that God removes the cause and effect from the picture. If there was a clear cause and effect, we would not be having this conversation.
Fear is the most prime and most powerful motivating factor.
Right.
I don't realize.
Yeah.
Like, well, but it's just fear of Hashem.
No, but fear of Hashem is something that we have to do.
Right.
But the other fears that we have in life are just direct, animalistic cause and effect. Mm-hmm. I touched the button, I got hit, I'm not going to touch it again. It's the animal will do the exact same thing. That's very primal, but that's immediate. So there's no avoda, there's no work for us to do here. It's automatically in the nervous system. It's happening at a very instinctual level. This, on the other hand, Hashem wants us to do it by choice. So for that, cause and effect
tells us this is what I want from this.
Right, but the cause and effect is not there.
Right.
The cause and effect is not there. That means if you do an avera, you're not going to immediately be hurt. Bad things are not going to happen to you.
Why not?
because then it's not your choice anymore.
And
You're
no
not
free
doing
will.
the
No,
work.
It's just a
no one
question
will
of
have
when.
free will.
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly.
That takes away
You
free
know?
will. Everyone
But
gets
if
stuck
it
in
happened
line.
right at the spot, like
You're saying why didn't Hashem design it that way?
Yeah.
you wouldn't have free
No one
choice.
will have free will.
Because then it would just be like everyone would just fear, like it would just be perfect. The
We'd be
world would just
robots.
be
We'd just be
perfect.
robots. We won't have
What's the
free
point
will.
of
Right.
that?
Right.
It has that. There's angels.
Yeah.
Angels that do exactly that. There's no. Hashem wanted people to make their own decision. It's a little more. I want you to decide on your own. And maybe
Then-
it's
and
more
then-
valuable.
And then down the line, you'll get punished.
In order for you to be
Yeah.
able to decide on your own, the punishment has to be
Yeah.
down the line and not immediately. Right.
Right.
So, which leaves us at the point of faith. So, faith is the point where do I believe that I will get punished down the line or not? Right. So that like bottom line allows us, or needs to be there, and later on we'll talk about that, in order for the fear to exist. But the fear is our entry point. The fear is where we sort of direct the reins. We pull the fear exists in us. It's going to pull us here or there. And our avodah is to find some degree of control we have over fear. It could be minute. Take that fear that we have and direct it away from fear of sheker achen, fear of what people think, fear of all that, directed into fear of Hashem. Right? So that's another, by the way, that's another very important point that we spoke about, which is when you asked about Yitzchak Avinu, right? That we're in Galut and we all have Hevel Yofi. The point over there is the seventh principle of the Chai Klalim, of learning Likutei Moharan, which is effectively a Kabbalistic principle, which is a foundation of Kabbalah that's called Kol HaBchinot, Kalul Mikol HaBchinot. Everything includes everything, which means that, I don't know if you follow the Sfirat Omer, so the first week is Chesed, right? But then you have Chesed Shebechesed, Vura Shebechesed. What does that mean?
Levels within levels.
Levels within levels. That means the overarching is Chesed, but within that there's all these. So what does that mean for us? That means everything that we're reading, even though they seem very high level,
There's levels within levels.
they can apply to someone who's in no connection to God. They can apply. That's the key point here. That there's an entry point for everyone into this. The way to understand that there's an entry point is to realize it's having humility, really, but it's to say, okay, maybe it's something tiny I need to do, but what's the tiny thing I need to do in regards to this avodah? And that's the point. So you know what? Maybe a person's anxiety is so out of hand, he has absolutely no control over it. But for 30 seconds, he can control it. So that's his avodah. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, he's going to direct his anxiety away from... Rabbi Natan has a very famous line that to me was just it just hooked me in Likutei Alachot Pesach Tet, where he talks about the reason people fall in Avodat Hashem is because they want to do Avodat Hashem on the level of a tzaddik. They're not happy doing Avodat Hashem on a basic level. They say, okay, if I'm gonna serve Hashem I want the accolades. Like if I'm gonna put in this amount of effort, I want something. I don't want to just put in a ton of effort and just be basic. Right? No? What?
There's something wrong in that thing. It's like the all or nothing. It's like I can't do everything, so I do nothing.
He says that's the point. He says that's really what it is. It's haughtiness.
Yeah.
A person's haughty. A person doesn't want to accept that he's more basic than he is. And so his Avodat Hashem, he strives for a very high level of Avodat Hashem. But when he finds out that he hasn't hit that level, he breaks. When he discovers, the moment that he discovers he didn't hit the level he wants to hit, he cracks. Why is he cracking? Why, when a person...
He wasn't truthful with where he was.
What is cracking him?
Because he can't celebrate what he's done.
Why?
Because he's not celebrating the good he's done.
Why?
Because he's choosing not to. And he can't see.
No, there's a reason why.
It's not like acknowledging his true madrega.
Exactly.
Sure.
It's not acknowledging his real madrega. If someone's honest with their madrega, I want to think I'm tzaddik, but I'm not tzaddik, or whoever, like, you might have moments of being tzaddik for 30 seconds of a day. So you're abandoning whatever it is.
The crashing point is when you see your true place.
Yeah.
The crash is when you see where you are at. Now, do you like what you see?
If you have a ladder,
Yeah.
it's down my head's thinking right now. If you have a ladder, very bothered by this. If you have a ladder with 10 rungs, I'm just picking a number, okay, 10 rungs,
Yeah.
and it's inside, it's on the 10th, okay?
And it's what?
The tzaddik is on the 10th, at the top.
Yeah.
And the post yet, or the simple person is at the bottom,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
What you're saying is we should...
No, we're not. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
What...
Rabbi Natan is saying it. Likutei Halachot, Hilchot Pesach, Halacha Tet.
that we should basically settle for the bottom rung and not start to get at the top. But on number 10, right? No, the way I understand it is that if you, let's say you aim for 10, okay? We're all supposed to be statistic, we're all decided to get side of us, okay?
Yeah.
You aim for 10, let's
Yeah.
you hit 7.
Yeah.
7 is a lot higher than 1.
Let's say
So
eight,
you
let's
should be happy that you reached 7. Maybe it's not 10, you could get that 1 point.
No, that's not what he's saying.
But don't settle for 1 when you could get to 3 or 5 or 7.
No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that a person should be happy with anything. Any drop of Avodat Hashem is good enough.
But then how is that would weaken your relationship. That would
Why?
say, I'm good enough just the way I am. I don't
Yeah.
need to improve anything. Everything is gewaldig.
Why?
And
Why would you say you don't need to improve anything?
Because you're happy with how you are.
Yeah.
Everything's the way it needs to be. Everything's good. Everything's
One
good.
second. You're happy with the way you are means you don't need to improve.
Why should you improve if you're happy with how you are?
That's a byproduct of feeling of happy. A byproduct of feeling happy in your Avodat Hashem is the want to improve.
But aren't you saying that we should be content with where we are?
Yes. When you're content with where you are, you feel the need to improve.
But then you're content with where you are. Why
Yeah.
should you improve?
That's how it works.
You're
You're
always
saying
striving to
the
go
opposite
higher.
thing. You
The
can't
more
be content-
the more happy you are with the way in Avodat Hashem, the more happy you are with the place that you're at, the more it's going to drive you forward.
So maybe we're saying the same thing but with different wording.
Okay.
I think so.
Because it's from what I'm hearing you saying is you can acknowledge where you are,
You must acknowledge.
which isn't happy, but you're acknowledging today I'm over here, and I'm gonna strive to be over here tomorrow, but I'm not gonna settle and be happy with where I am. But I can acknowledge that.
I don't
I'm
know what the
doing
word
best
settle
I-
means. I don't know about the word settle. Rabbi Natan didn't use the word settle. So
Happy.
I don't know about settle.
I think you're extrapolating it. If a person
I'm
says,
happy with how I
"I'm
am.
happy where I
I'm good
am,"
enough.
So the next step is I don't need to do anything more because it's
Right, so I'm thinking.
That's not what Rabbi
acknowledge-
Natan's
I'm thinking
definition of
You're saying
happiness.
be happy where you are, but it is not saying settle.
Doesn't mean be complacent. It just okay. You acknowledge the things you've accomplished, and you use that as a motivation to continue forward. It doesn't mean
That's not
I've
being happy.
accomplished it and game over.
What's the definition of shiflut?
What?
Shiflut. Shiftless.
Contentment.
Shiftless is what?
Lowliness, usually lowliness. It's not such a humble. No.
Shiftless is awareness of where you're at.
Right, acknowledgement, awareness.
Acknowledgement. That's the key.
Good.
That's the key
not
point.
necessarily being happy.
That's what Rabbi Natan said. That's the key point.
Fine, but that's not
Shiftless.
necessarily being happy with where I am.
Right. I don't know. He didn't say. You have Likutei Halachot. Yeah. You have
what I'm
Orach
saying.
Chaim Bet. I'll just read the lashon so we don't get confused.
Yes, we need to acknowledge I'm right here, right now. I'm not Johnny, I'm not Sarah, I'm not Dobby. I'm me, and I'm not gonna get depressed because I can't be that other person. I'm acknowledging my strengths and weaknesses or whatever it is. I'm acknowledging that I can do better and be better. But it's very different than being happy with where I am
What?
and saying that where I am is enough.
acknowledging.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
I
I
know.
didn't hear you.
I think this is a very big
don't have
danger. This is a very big danger in saying
Here, Pesach 10. I'll read it to you. So, first of all, you keep saying I'm saying. I'm not saying.
we're saying the same thing with different wording.
Okay. Here, Pesach that ki ikara nefila. Okay, nefila. Nefila means when a person falls. Falling means falling is by choice. Falling is the part of depression that's by choice. Whatever that is. That's what nefila is, okay? Al-yedei gadlut. Through haughtiness. Shemachmat gasuto nidmed lo shekvar haya yagea b'avodat Hashem. Because of his haughtiness, he has an illusion, okay, that he's worked so hard for Hashem. Ukshero'eh achar kach godel richuko. So he's under this illusion that he's in this good place with Hashem. But then something happens and he sees that he's not in the place that he imagined he was. Okay, he sees he's far away from Hashem. He falls. He falls in his mind. He really crashes. Why? Because he feels that what he did was for nothing. Okay? And this feeling can lead a person all the way down to hell. The more he feels that whatever he served Hashem, all his prayer, everything he did was for nothing, the more the crash will be hard and he will go down. Aval. Now here's the point. So this is the negative version of it.
What you just mentioned.
Yeah. Now, what's the positive version? Aval mi shechafetz be'emet, someone who truly desires to come closer to Hashem, to serve Hashem. Truly. Not looking for status or whatever. Just looking to come closer to Hashem. I don't care what that looks like. Yodea shifluto be'emet. Knows, acknowledges, right? Yodea shifluto be'emet. He acknowledges...
The fall.
No, he acknowledges where he's at.
Right.
Okay, it's not necessarily the fall. The fall is if you don't acknowledge it, then you fall. But if you acknowledge it, then you're stable. I'm in a low place. I acknowledge it. I'm aware of it. I'm not denying it. Okay, we're not talking yet about happy. And what's the word? At the same time, Hashem's greatness also. He acknowledges his lowliness and Hashem's greatness. He acknowledges it. I am in this low place, and Hashem is immensely great. So this produces a feeling inside of him. And here's the point. This produces the feeling that it's worth it for him. Everything he's done in the world, bishvil nekuda achat shel itnotzetzut elokut echad. Now comes the part of happiness. So this produces the feeling that he's satisfied, and it's worth it. It's worth it for him to go through all of this just to feel one drop, one spark of godliness. So being in a stable place and acknowledging where you are puts a person in a place where he can handle tons of work for a tiny outcome. Okay? Umisameach, and he rejoices. Bechol nekuda unekuda. He rejoices with each point. Each point is its bundle of joy. Shemotze ba'atzmo mikudushat Yisrael. Any point that he finds that he's a Jew causes him to rejoice. Va'adraba, okay? Kol ma sheroeh richuko yoter, and here comes the kicker. The more, in fact, not only that, the more he sees that he's far away, the more he sees that he's on rung one, of the ladder, ba lesimcha yoter. It makes him even happier. Why? Machmat sheba l'shiflut va'anava yoter. Because he puts him into his place, puts him into shiflut and anava. He's humble, and the more a person is, what does it mean that he's humble? What does it mean humble? Humble is not a status. There's people who see humble as a status. That's false humility. Look, I'm humble. I've achieved the status of humble. That's not, no. Humble is this way. Humble is just, it's basically you're aligned with yourself. I am me. So that's what he's saying. So that the more you align with yourself, the more it generates happiness for a person. It makes him happy and he connects to Hashem. Why does a person crash? Because he's not aligned with himself, because he's living in an illusion, which is driven by his haughtiness, that all his efforts are, he's living in a movie. They say in Hebrew, Chai Beseret. He has this movie. Look at this. They're going to write books about me one day. They're going to write a biography. They're going to sell it for Art Scroll. It's going to be... This is... now they're writing chapter 7. I don't know. This is chapter 7, you know? Like, he's living in an illusion. And then... crash. It's not that illusion. So that makes him, that breaks him, right? So that illusion is driven by haughtiness, breaks a person and it drives him away. The reverse is that he says that the anava and the shiflut, the acknowledgement of the anava and the shiflut, the acknowledgement of where I am, totally you can handle it. So why? Because I just want to come close to Hashem, whatever that means. Like, really, are we really coming closer to Hashem if we're doing it from this made-up illusion space? You're not. Your character, your persona is doing the work. Where are you in the picture? You know what I mean? So when you are doing the work and it's truly you, even if it's very basic, amateur, not even Benoni, before that, you're okay with that. Not only okay with that, it makes you happy. More and more.
Happy, not where you are, but the realization that I am accepting and acknowledging where I'm at.
The feeling of being you.
Right, but that's not being happy where I am. That's being happy that I am who I am in that place.
But you know what it does? וזה בחינת ירידה תכלית עלייה. That drives you upwards. That drives you upwards. It's you're settling,
right.
But you're not settling.
You're not settling. You're happy where you are.
Settling. It sounds more.
I know, but I'm to borrow those words.
Yeah, it's not so much settling. It's just being real.
Yes.
I'm here. Okay, I've accepted the fact I'm not going to be there. But you know what? Maybe I can take myself up a notch.
So then you're not settling. What you initially said was, I'm happy where I am, meaning that's good enough. Whereas what you're saying now is, I'm happy with the fact that I understand where I am at.
But you're adding, that's not what he said. You're adding that second part.
I'm not happy with where I'm happy
where I'm at.
No,
but you're adding, therefore.
No. He says here. Let's forget about what I said. Here he says, I acknowledge where I am,
right.
And I'm happy with every point that I'm a Jew and I'm connected to Hashem. That's what I'm happy with.
Right.
That's what he says. I don't know how.
Yeah.
So that's the happy, and then why does this actually propel a person forward? Because you don't fall. You don't fall. Falling means that you fall from your illusion. Falling from an illusion puts you into sadness.
What's an illusion?
You built a persona for yourself. That's a huge gap from your actual self.
Spiritually or midos?
Psychologically. Like, I don't know, have you been on social media?
No.
There's about 1 billion examples of this. We are living this. This is our generation. We are living this. We have personas upon personas. Someone will have multiple personas.
So when you feel spiritually high, is it an illusion?
Yes. 100%.
You think so?
Why?
You think?
100%.
I think it's a gift. If anything,
I think
no,
it's-
it's a
yeah.
gift. It's a real. It's that moment. It's real. It's not. It was.
But the death.
It's not saying that's your true Drake. It might be a gift from Hashem to inspire
tell you
you to
why.
move on in the
No,
future.
I'll tell you why. Because
Yeah, yeah.
the definition of the word high is a relative term.
Oh, elevated.
Elevated also a relative term. Whatever term you're going to use is going to be relative
Right.
because it's relative to your baseline,
Right.
right? But what that means is your baseline means your capacity to handle. When you feel elevated, it means you've gone beyond your capacity to handle.
Oh, okay.
As long as you're within your capacity to handle, you're not going to feel elevated. Think about it. Think about any experience where. So the reason that's a problem is that's called shvirat hakelim, the shattering of the vessels. That means that too much light. Think of a Baal Tshuva. Always start off high, elevated.
Yeah.
It's a necessary starting point. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But that crashes. This is our Torah, by the way.
Occasionally.
No, always. It's a fact of the system.
What's
It's not a crash. It's
It's a fact of the system. It must be that this is how the world. This is the hishtalshalut of the way Hashem created the world. You first need to. The first time you're introduced to God, it's going to be in a way that is beyond your capability of handling it. It's the first time.
right?
The first time is always going to be beyond because it's the first time.
after that moment or that experience, you have to. The trick is to integrate it into your everyday existence. It's not necessarily a fall. It can be a fall.
It's not a fall. It's a shattering.
I don't.
It's a shattering. You're
To bechina, I'm no longer to
Breaking.
bechina.
you break it. What happens is
What do you break?
you're breaking you.
Your old
You're breaking
vessels.
you.
Yeah, you're going upwards.
You're breaking something.
You're
So
breaking old self.
It's like
but
a
you're-
Yeah,
shell.
you're breaking your.
It's
You're
like a-
breaking-
You're breaking your outer shell.
Yes.
To raise yourself higher.
sure,
Yes.
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're gonna break. You're gonna
Break the old shell.
Yes.
To the new shell.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the breaking is a must.
Yeah.
that's fine.
No, I agree with you.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. The break. That's all I'm saying. That's how it works. That's called shvirat hakelim. It needs to happen. The breaking needs to happen. That means that the person is gonna realize, oh my God, I should start keeping Shabbat. He never kept Shabbat in his life. He never kept Shabbat in his life.
Right.
What do you think is gonna? What do you think is gonna happen? You're breaking a whole lifestyle.
Right.
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 That it's disruptive.
And
Yeah.
okay.
generationally.
Yeah, it's disruptive. What do you mean? That's the shattering part. So that's why the process has to be the elevation or the high. The way for it not to turn into an illusion is to allow for the shattering to happen.
Right. And in my case, I get more out of Shabbos if I'm at shul for 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I have Hashem to myself. I daven up to Baruch Hu, and then I join the congregation. That whole Shabbos, way up there.
Absolutely, it's needed. Yeah.
And gradually, the little parachute opens up, and I come down either for a soft landing or a hard landing, you know. But you know, that's how I feel. I mean, the first time going to Ullman,
For sure.
took me 3 weeks to land.
I guess the way to tell if it's an illusion is when you land. Are you bothered by it?
Right.
That's sort of nothing. That's says
You
the
need a teacher. You need a teacher to help you integrate it back into your
Yeah.
everyday existence. That's the trick.
That's the key.
Some people, you know, they can't do that, and they just forget about it and actually move on. And other people, they use that as a motivating force to go to
need
yeshiva
the
to
teacher.
learn
You
Hilchot
need-
Shabbos, and then in 6 months or a year, or 3
no,
years.
but yeah,
Yeah,
but
I'm
you don't
saying-
think at some point it's the problem is
the
it's,
old persona, the old personality, the old way of living is shattered, and it can be.
no. So that's why I said that the reason the shattering is a must is because when a person doesn't accept that the shattering is a must, he's gonna try to extend the high as much as possible
Right. Okay.
because
No,
yeah.
I
You go so
shatter.
high before you fall.
Right, but you can take it 10 years. You can
Okay,
take-
but it's gonna be a point where if you don't experience a fall, then you're never gonna be able to teach yourself to get back up again. If something is always perfect, it's always high, it's always
No, so
solid.
what you could do is you can create this fake version of yourself and live in that imagination.
Right, and then what happens when you get rattled up a little bit? You can't control yourself. You can't contain yourself. You don't know what to do it yourself. But
Eventually.
you never had that.
No, so eventually you fall into depression.
Yeah,
Eventually you fall into
every
depression.
day can't be selfish. You need to have fun.
Exactly.
Back
Exactly.
through that goal, then you go back up to jobs.
You need to. It's not a plan B. Sunday, Monday is not a mistake in the system.
It can feel that way.
Right.
A lot.
But why that? What's the source of the feeling that it feels like it's plan B, that it shouldn't be? Is because we haven't come to terms with the way the system works, that you need to come out of the high. We haven't come to terms with that. And that why, and that's what we're not going to say, Mahmad Gasuto, because of a person's haughtiness, because a person doesn't want to accept being low and not being high. What do you mean, me? I need to be high. That's who I am. Beyond, at a very root level, there's a haughtiness that we have, that we deserve to be in this elevated state. So that fuels our imagination, that fuels our persona. Why did I bring this up?
Why?
Because
Yeah,
we were saying that the principle of Rabbi Nachman's teaching is that everyone can apply anything Rabbi Nachman says to where he's holding. But the foundation for that is understanding and knowing where you're holding. And accepting that maybe the way I apply it is very basic. So Rabbi Nachman gives us the root principles, but we need to extrapolate them in a way that makes sense for our lives. To do that, we need to see where we're holding and be true with ourselves, and then we'll find our access point. So sometimes it can be basic. He's not telling us major things. That's a big point. Sometimes Rabbi Nachman says some things that are basic. But where we came, what do you mean? I came to learn Likutei Moharan. I came for like, I can't give me basic stuff. Basic. It's basic, normal little things. Little things do a lot. Little things make a difference. And that's the if we understand that, then we can see where we can control the fear. Back to our lesson. There's a point where we have control over our fear. There's a point. I don't know what that is. Everyone knows for himself what that point is. Take that point, turn it towards Hashem, and then we move into long breath. We move into long breath. Deeper breathe. Deeper breathing is a foundation to receive wealth. Right? So they go hand in hand. We didn't go into the next part, which is why wealth is deeper breathing. But very simply because rain produces wealth. All the wealth in the world is from either grain or minerals or herbs. All the wealth comes from those things, and those things can't exist without rain. And rain brings in oxygen into the ground. So it's putting in air, breath of Hashem.
And growth.
The growth happens from what? From the rain.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so in the rain there's breath.
Yeah.
So that long breath pushes the minerals to grow. So that's the connection that Rabbi Nachman makes between wealth and growth. Okay. Do we have any questions? We went off a bit on a tangent there.
It's okay.
But I think we tied it all back. We have to stay focused on our lesson here.
Very interesting. At the beginning, you were saying about the breathing, and
Yeah.
it's